from llamas being vaulted to a feature that was removed after 7 years. This is 25 things secretly removed in Fortnite. If you remember any of these, you're definitely a Fortnite OG. Comment down below which ones you knew and which ones you didn't know. If you played Fortnite years ago, you'll remember the moving llamas. Or maybe you won't. Because most players remember the llamas the way they are now. They simply stand there and wait to be opened. But not in the end of Chapter 2. Because in Chapter 2, llamas actually ran away when you got close. You had to chase them down and shoot them before they disappeared. But now they just stand still again waiting to be looted. And since llamas are so rare to find, most players didn't even know this feature was removed at all. And just like this next one, you probably haven't thought about these in a while, if you even knew about them. The bounty boards. You'd accept the bounty, track down your target, and earn gold bars for the elimination. It would tell you the general area of the player, and your goal was to chase them down and eliminate them. It made for a fun little side quest throughout the match, but Fortnite removed this feature, and most players didn't even notice. Most players forgot when you could use trees as weapons. The timber pines were trees that knocked down once breaking them. These would damage players, you could ride them down rivers, you could destroy builds with them. But as time went on, Epic stopped adding them to the new maps, and now they're just completely gone. Just like this next one, because in Fortnite Chapter 6, Fortnite introduced these little creatures called sprites. They were connected to the island's energy and came in different elements, like water or air. Players could collect and interact with them, but after a short time, Epic removed them completely. Because in Season 4, the bugs arrived to the island, and the bugs actually ate all of the sprites, which explains their secret disappearance. But this next one sadly didn't have an explanation. The second cutest creature in Fortnite right after the sprites, the fan favorite, Klombo. These gentle giants roamed the island, eating items and launching you with their blowholes. Players absolutely adored these creatures, but only after one season Fortnite completely removed them, only leaving a skull in their place. No one knows what happened to these creatures, but players were sad to see them go. Comment RIP Klombo in the comments and maybe Fortnite will bring them back. You might think the bounce pad was the first pad in the game, or maybe even the launch pad, but you'd be completely wrong. The directional jump pad came first. Not many players even remember it though. It simply shot you in the direction you were facing, leading to some cool trick shots, but Fortnite secretly removed this, and since it was barely in the game, no one even remembers it. This next one is one of the rarest items to ever exist. The Midas Flopper. It instantly turned your entire inventory into gold weapons when eaten. It was incredibly hard to find and only appeared during a few seasons in Chapter 2. And once those seasons ended, it never returned. And to this day, it's one of Fortnite's rarest consumables. Okay, but everyone is familiar with the storm in Fortnite. But there was another form of this that was completely different. In Chapter 3, Fortnite experimented with dynamic weather. Tornadoes, thunderstorms, and earthquakes. These all did their own things. Tornado would literally pick up builds and nearby enemies and throw them. But after Chapter 3, these never returned and hardly anyone remembers them. But this next one definitely wasn't as small of a change. It was removed after 7 years of being in the game. It's not something like the pump shotgun or the llamas. Those were definitely controversial when removed, but not as controversial as this next one. The time when Fortnite removed skin rarities. For 7 years of Fortnite, when buying skins in the item shop or when looking at items in the locker, they were all rated by the rarity they were. Common, uncommon, rare, epic, legendary. But when Fortnite decided to remove this, everyone got extremely upset. And it made it super weird in the locker for those used to the rarities. One of Fortnite's coolest experiments was weapon attachments. You could add scopes, suppressors, or different types of barrels to customize your weapons. Very similar to games like Call of Duty. They added it in Chapter 5, but when Chapter 6 came around, it was not here anymore. So I guess Fortnite decided that they didn't like it. But another one from Chapter 3, Fortnite actually added the Hologram chests. You probably don't know what they are, but these things were pretty cool. You could see exactly what weapon was inside before opening it, but you couldn't open it for free. You'd have to collect keys around the island, and then you could open them. They even had normal rarities, like rare, epic, legendary, and even mythic and exotics. But after a few seasons, Epic secretly removed them. In Chapter 4's jungle biome, Fortnite added mud. Sliding through it made you faster and stay hidden from thermal vision. It was actually a pretty cool mechanic, but now it's completely gone from the island. Everyone assumed Fortnite would just keep the mud around on new islands, but they completely abandoned it. Okay, but this next one was one of the most creative mechanics Fortnite ever added. The tents. You could store weapons between matches, heal inside, and even find mythic loot from the past games. It changed the way people prepared for fights, but just like that, Epic vaulted tents and never brought them back. It's crazy to think we once had a full inventory saving across games, and now nothing. This was secretly removed from Fortnite, and later in the video there was something secretly removed from your locker and you did not know. The Fortnite Skull Trooper skin is one of the most popular skins in the game, but what if I told you that this was completely removed? Well, that would be partially true, because in the China version of Fortnite, Skull Trooper, Skull Ranger, Oro, and any other skeleton skins were completely removed from the game. Even the crackshot style with a skull on it. But next up, in Chapter 3 of Fortnite, there was a giant statue on the island, and this thing was too big to miss. They've had statues in the game before, but this one was special because it had an insane game-breaking glitch. You see, players found out that if you threw an off-road tire at a specific spot on the statue, the entire thing would start flying across the map.
Sometimes it's severe. Oh.
Honestly, this one was pretty hilarious and made for some great laughs, but now it was removed from the game. But this next one was very controversial. One day, Fortnite randomly decided to allow players to redeploy their gliders at any time. This meant you could jump from the highest of towers and still take no fall damage. Fortnite changed this and never brought it back, besides an item that allows you to redeploy your glider. But did you know that there was an emote that was completely changed? When Fortnite added the Sabrina Carpenter Espresso emotes, they originally had it sped up. But you see, this really made a lot of people mad. A lot of people just wanted the regular song in the game, and so after they complained for a few days, Fortnite completely removed it. But then they added it back with the regular audio. I guess Fortnite was hurt by the backlash, so they just changed it. But I'm not gonna lie, I kinda liked it sped up. But back in Chapter 1, Fortnite allowed players to change their resolution to a stretched format. Players were starting to get really sweaty, and they took this super seriously. They started changing their game to look stretched so they could see more in the box. This was used by a lot of pro players to try and get better at the game and try to get an upper hand on the other players. But Fortnite decided that this was unfair because some people can't do this, so they started banning players for doing this. Subscribe if you knew any of these. But next up, time when Loserfruit's skin had a secret change. When her skin originally released, if you wore a back bling, her hair would go over her shoulder. But Fortnite secretly removed that, and now her hair just stays there and the back bling covers it. And later in the video, there was one that made Nick-A30 freak out.
One of the greatest vehicles in Fortnite was the tank. This vehicle was sadly removed after a few seasons, but before it was removed, if you went into replay mode and looked at your character inside the tank, it revealed that your character were actually using the controls properly. No one would have ever noticed this in games, so the devs really just did this for a secret detail. But a funny secret that was removed was in Chapter 2 when the Coral Castle was added. If you went to the center area of Coral Castle, there was this little hallway that had a bunch of conch shells on it. emotes. These shells would play different tunes when you would use them, and some players even made a song. Fortnite removed something from the game that no one would notice today. Back in the day, Fortnite didn't have any special healing animations, but now they have these fancy, cool animations. This is just a small detail, but it looks so much better.
Did you know that Fortnite was originally working on an item that could call in a custom supply drop? This was secretly scrapped and removed, but would have been super interesting to see. But another item like this was called the Golden Ticket, which was the original reboot van. But instead of how you rift in with the current reboot van, it was supposed to be a battle bus that comes and drops you off. This would have been crazy, but they removed it. But do you remember the alien nanite grenades? Well, not many do. These created a giant square that if inside, you could float around in zero gravity and move wherever you wanted in weird ways. But did you know that before it was this, there was a weird version of it? It used to be a grenade that could be thrown down, and if inside of this bubble, instead of being able to move like this, it was just slow motion. This would be interesting to see in real fights.
Did you know that Take the L, Laugh It Up, and a bunch of emotes were secretly banned from Fortnite? One day they secretly added a setting that allowed you to turn these emotes off, and they didn't even tell anyone. But this next secret is kinda sus, because Fortnite secretly changed the doghouse sleigh emote. This emote has your character like straddling the doghouse, but someone out there somehow figured out that if you put on a skin with a skirt, they changed the way that they sit. Okay, but who figured this out? After years of being worked on, Fortnite finally released their first-person mode, Ballistics. But after only 2 weeks of being out, they already had removed it. I mean, you could still play the ranked version, but some players say it's too sweaty. But Fortnite removed a feature that was important to many players, and this actually had to do with a collaboration. Star Wars has been in the game for a long time, but in Chapter 3, Fortnite released the Darth Vader skin, and with his emote specifically for his skin, you could hear the Darth Vader breathing sound effect. But 2.5 years later, when they added a new Darth Vader skin, players expected to hear the breathing again when using the emotes, but it doesn't happen. It's only for the original Darth Vader skin. The Take a Seat emote had a huge change as well though. For the male skins, they put their foot on their knee, but for the female skin, she crosses her legs. This one just makes sense, I guess. But unlike the next one on this list, because in Chapter 3, Fortnite added the Klombo. He gave you some good loot, he walked around the island, but after a few months of him being in the game, he was randomly removed. And Fortnite never told us why, until 3 years later when Fortnite added him back to LEGO. I mean, I'm glad we have him back a little bit, but why can't we just have him in Battle Royale? Fortnite made some huge changes to Battle Passes. They changed the prices from 950 V-Bucks to 1000 V-Bucks, but they also changed the way that Battle Passes function. For a few years, we have had Battle Stars. These would collect in your pass over time as you leveled up, and you can unlock your Battle Pass one by one. But in Chapter 6, Fortnite removed this, and now they just unlock over time automatically. But a fan favorite Fortnite emote was removed for good. Fortnite has gotten into a lot of trouble with copyright over the years. The original default audio was actually removed because it sounded too similar to something else. And then later that chapter, they brought out the tidy emote. But after some drama with its original creators, Fortnite decided they wouldn't bring this back. And to this day, it hasn't returned. But something else that hasn't returned is LTMs, also known as limited time modes. These were added in Chapter 1 to keep the game fresh. It would be a fun game modes like Floor is Lava, Snipers Only, Solid Gold. But at some point in early Chapter 2, Fortnite decided they would stop bringing these back. I think Fortnite would be much better if they just added some of these fun game modes back. But something that scared a bunch of players was when the giant turtle was randomly removed one update. Players were running around the island like, where is he, where is he? But it turned out he wasn't removed, but instead he was moved to a new location. Like and subscribe to keep Timmy the Turtle in the game. In 2023, we saw a glimpse of Fortnite OG, the original version, not the new one, but the version that was only out for a month long. Fortnite secretly had removed the iconic loading screen though. They ended up up replacing it with a very clever version where we get to see the other side of the classic wall. We even see Jones peeking around the corner. But in actual old Fortnite, there was this huge footprint on the ground. Players always wondered where it came from. Some thought maybe it was a dinosaur, others said maybe the monster from season 9. But 6 years after it was removed from the game, by the time that it was added back in OG, we have a Godzilla collaboration. Maybe that is what made this footprint after all. Okay, but in 2024's Winterfest, there was a huge theme. This was the hidden gingerbread men all around the island. They would do everything, from enjoying some bird food to burying a robot. These guys were out of control, but these sadly would be removed after the Winterfest ended. In day 1 of OG Fortnite, the Slurp juices would heal 25 shield and 25 health. That was what it was like in the original season 1, but because Fortnite thought this wasn't good enough today, they changed it back to 75 HP, secretly removing the OG Slurp juice and replacing it with the new one. But that isn't the only Slurp juice that was removed, because in chapter 4 we had a very overpowered Slurp juice that was the legendary Slurp. This Slurp healed 200 HP over time, and after Fortnite chapter 4, luckily we haven't seen this since. Okay, but in chapter 6, Fortnite added some crazy movement, with the ability to jump extra far on ledges and even bounce off walls. But when Fortnite OG came around, players were wondering if they'd keep this in the game, but instead Fortnite removed this and kept it OG. Well, kind of. They kept the sprinting and mantling, but honestly it's better that way. But another movement item was secretly removed in chapter 4. Many players didn't know this even existed because of how long it was removed. Hurdling was added for only a few weeks in chapter 4, and it was so buggy that it was removed and wasn't added fully back until chapter 5. Remember earlier when I talked about Darth Vader? Well, there's another Darth Vader secret that has been removed, because when he was in the game as an NPC, he had a custom death animation when you would eliminate him. And this was of course removed when he left the game. But he isn't the only character to have a custom death animation, because when Peter Griffin came to the game, he also had a death animation and it was pretty funny. But one of my favorite weapons in Fortnite actually kinda did have a secret too, because the Evochrome weapons would upgrade as you did damage. This was extremely underrated, and sadly we haven't seen this in the game since chapter 3. But that isn't the only chrome that was removed. So was the chrome splash, which allowed you to walk through walls. But a crazy detail in Fortnite chapter 2 was that when you walked into a new biome wearing a bush, the bush would change to match that biome, giving you a much better disguise. But something that was expected to come did not, because the Skibbity Toilet outfit came to the item shop, the cameraman skin with the toilet back bling. Use code PPJ, by the way. But when I was looking at this, I was like, so where's the Skibbity Toilet emote? And sadly, they never even added it. But this next one's hilarious though. Fortnite added a rip-off version of Among Us, and it was called Imposters. This had many tasks that you could do, and it was honestly a lot of fun. One of the tasks had you order a specific kind of pizza, and hilariously, they called the pineapple topping Psycho. Imposters was sadly removed, but I mean, honestly, I think they should add it back. Something else that was a lot of fun were the toys. These toys would add a new spin to matches, and with a football you could throw, a soccer ball you could kick, and one of my favorites was the basketball. You could shoot these into hoops and it would actually work. But at some point in between then and now, Fortnite removed this and it doesn't even do anything anymore, which is sad. But another funnier glitch was when you could fly around the island like Superman. This was insane. If you timed it right, with the Oni mask, you could just fly forever. This next one had the whole community upset though, because in chapter 5, Fortnite went all out for the metaverse, which was a good move overall, but they decided to remove the rarity on skins and emotes and pickaxes. This was a weird change and was hard to get used to for sure. Similar to when Fortnite added moving llamas. The llamas at some point in chapter 2 one day just started running around. If you didn't kill them in time, they would rift to another location on the map, leaving you with absolutely nothing besides a few shields.
Did you know that there used to be water balloons that could damage people? Now we only have a boring emote. In chapter 1, we used to get LTMs pretty much every week. But something a lot of people forgot was the red supply drops that were in the LTMs. These would drop all sorts of crazy items, but not as crazy as the Kingsman umbrella from chapter 2. Okay, maybe it wasn't that crazy, but this was only in the game for like 1 week, and it wasn't even very good, so nobody really remembers it.
Shield. And I'm gonna kill him. Okay.
But something that everybody needs to remember was in Chapter 1. Fortnite had just added a shopping carts to their game, but something that not a lot of people remember is when you paired it up with a minigun, you could ramp up your speed like crazy. But there was a secret change to the Big Shield potion that no one remembers. This thing used to be a common rarity. Definitely an interesting choice, but one of Fortnite's funniest moments is in Chapter 1 when friendly fire was enabled. Okay, maybe it's good that Fortnite removed this. The pump shotgun is one of Fortnite's most beloved items, but some players have forgotten how overpowered it was in Chapter 1 when there was no delay. The classic double pump was so broken. If there's one thing that players seem to forget, it would be the pre-built structures. Fortnite used to have llamas, foxes, and many other animals built around the island. If you landed there, anyone could edit the build, and there were even some chests inside. But around that same time, players began noticing something in the sky, this strange comet. And not only that, but meteors were falling from the sky and landing on players. This made for some hilarious clips. There's one thing I miss about OG Fortnite, it was the secret battle stars. In loading screens, you could find these secret coordinates. And when going to them, you would find a battle star. These stars would give you an entire level and allow you to get more items in the battle pass. It used to feel so good to get this as well. Remember the big shield potion changes? Well, that wasn't the only changes to shields. Everyone knows that you can carry 6 minis now. But in Chapter 1, you could carry 10 minis at one time. An extremely forgotten collaboration was the It collaboration in Chapter 1. If you went to Pleasant Park, you would find this balloon, and when you broke it, you would hear this creepy laugh. This was so creepy. We never even got a skin or anything, this was just there to scare players. But this character was forgotten by everyone, even Epic Games. Because one time, there was a new emote, and Fortnite posted a trailer for it, but the skin in the trailer never even came out. I'm not sure what happened to it, but it seems like Fortnite forgot.